When we go through a spiritual awakening, there are different levels of consciousness through which we're going to pass. Now, so many of us, when we have gone past our awakening stage, the tools we use, the mantras we use, visualization, and so much more is going to shift. So certain things will no longer resonate with you. You may have used tools before. You may have come to a point where you don't feel that you want to be using a tool, where you don't feel inspired to use matter to make any change within you, but actually you feel that you're already being guided. You feel that you're being divinely inspired to take your next step in life, to choose whatever it is that you wish to do, whatever it is that you wish to attract to yourself. In fact, when you cross over and you are now fully feeling spiritually awakened, in this stage, folks, you're now operating from a pure level of consciousness, and it actually feels like everything is being done for you as opposed to being done to you. When you feel that things are still being done to you, usually that is when you are at the level of consciousness which is more like an animal level of consciousness, where everything that happens in us, in our lives, is very, very 3D. It's to us, and that we are not in control of what's happening to us. We're still in that game of, this happened to me, or my mood is feeling in this way because of somebody else. We don't take responsibility for anything until we go through our grand rising, our awakening. And it is only after you go through the awakening that you then are operating from a different level of consciousness, and through this consciousness you're going to want to turn the tables back at yourself, and you think, well, you know what, I am responsible, I am going to make the changes. And at that level, depending on the level at which you are, even within the awakening, because through your awakening you are going to be healing, returning to wholeness at every different point on the continuum of consciousness within that consciousness. So if you like, it's got a subset. Within that, you're going to be transforming and transforming and transforming. So it isn't a case that you're sort of going through your awakening now and you've gone through everything, you've cleared all your blocks, you've cleared and you've done your work, and then you get to a point and then there won't be anything else. So folks, at every level, as long as there is something, as long as you don't feel that your life is exactly how you want it to be and there isn't a flow, then remember, you are still going through that process, and it's okay to be in that process. It's okay for you to have those days when you feel frustrated, those days when you don't, feel like things are going your way. Now, during the course of your awakening, as I've said in the previous video on this, spiritual awakening and abundance, is spiritual awakening and abundance go hand in hand. Now, for some of you, you will be drawn towards manifestation techniques, whether it is creative visualization, whether it is you bringing yourself in a theta state, you bringing yourself in a state where you're able to almost tap into how you want things to be, but you're almost in a lucid dream state. So you can do this by falling asleep or almost falling asleep on a heavy stomach. And so you'll see that the kind of dreams that you have at that time on a heavy stomach or a full stomach are very different to when you go to bed light or completely light. Now, in that state, like a feverish state, you're able to induce this and take control of how you want your life to be by emerging and immersing yourself with the personality or with whatever it is that your future self would be doing. So many of you would be attracted to these sort of techniques at that level, including the level at your awakening. This is when you're really, really interested in all these different modalities and you have this urgency in healing yourself. You come to realize that the way that you've been living your life has never been fully you, and there's a quest to identify you. What is you? What is the equation of you, and what is it that you want? And some of you may have not even considered what you want or how you want your life to pan out. Now, for those of you who, alongside all of this, happen to spontaneously awaken your Kundalini without any spiritual practices, without even a spiritual awakening, without even having any tools, and you suddenly are thrust into this. Now remember, your spiritual awakening will give you the consciousness or the vehicle through which you can then use Kundalini awakening to further your transformation. So we're going to park that on the corner and carry on with the levels of consciousness that evolve, that change, that emerge as you go through your awakening. Now, as you go through your awakening, now the more that you're going to be releasing, the more that you're going to be letting go of, and the kind of tools you're going to use, at some point you will have these tools, and there's some tools that are going to work for you, and there's some tools that are not going to work for you. To know the tool that's going to work for you, if at all you still require a tool, will depend on the consciousness at which you are operating, your modus operandi. For us to know where we are, you've got to first look at your life and see, do you feel that life is happening to you? Do you feel that your awakening is happening to you? Do you feel that your life has been interrupted and it's somebody else who is in control of everything? Or do you feel that you have a part to play in this? Do you feel divinely inspired? Do you feel that you don't want to listen to anybody, or you want to be on this path on your own, and you feel like you're quite in control of everything, and that everything is a constant flow for you? No matter what, a constant flow doesn't have to have a hue and shade of good or bad, and this is really great, this is what I experienced. But to be able to transform whatever comes your way, to be able to see it in a different hue and shade, to be able to use every problem as a possibility, this is where your mindset completely evolves in a spiritual awakening. Now, during your awakening, folks, this is when that period of awakening itself, alongside the consciousness of that awakening, depending on where you are, can be stretched for a very, very long time. And this is when you go through this phase of destruction, phase of deconstruction, a phase of when you're deconstructing an old construct of you, including an old construct of relationships, wealth, everything, our health, everything changes in that. From the basic things to even what you eat, your diet, your lifestyle, everything changes. So this is where people will come in, people will go out. And as you're going through this massive destruction or the massive sort of deconstruction in your life, you will also find a need to either let things be as they are, or to slowly start putting bricks together to build this new version of yourself. Now, as you do this, it is not that you sort of stagnate at your awakening. For a while, it might feel like that as you work through this stage of awakening, and as you now sort of release whatever is filling your pot of consciousness, you're releasing that. You're releasing that to try to get into a place of just consciousness, just pure consciousness. And as you do this, you then start to hit other levels of consciousness where now using these tools doesn't make any sense to you. You don't feel like you want tools. You don't feel like, and this is where so many of you will say, I don't feel like doing my sadhana, I don't feel like doing my spiritual practice. You don't feel like chanting, you don't feel like sitting, you don't feel like meditating. And a lot of you will say, well, this is when I feel like I'm full of energy. I don't want to do anything. Either you want to do something or you don't want to do anything, but you just feel that wherever you are is where you're supposed to be doing. And any action that you want to take in your life is going to be divinely guided or divinely inspired, as you're no longer, and you can get into these states. Now, this is when, rather than you operating from a beta frequency, which is where a lot of us do, you are now at a higher brain frequency. As you do this, and when you're in that frequency, things are just happening for you. Things are happening, whether it's material abundance, whether things are making sense to you, whether it is meeting the kind of set of people. So you're not sort of putting yourself out there to try to control how things happen in your life, but things happen quite seamlessly. It is very, very easy, in fact, and it's very easy for you to make sense of what is happening. And this is when you enter a completely different set of no tools. Now, a lot of you will come to a point where you now feel like I am living my bliss. So work won't feel that, wow, I'm working. By this stage, you've come out of wanting what has been indoctrinated in you, that this is what I should be wanting with my life, whether it is, let's get married, have kids, get settled down, have a career, have a thriving career. What is a thriving career? Have a house, own a house. Those are sort of the bog standard things. And so when you've never really had the space to question the norm or to question all of this, your awakening does that for you. Your awakening will make you have those questions, and your awakening is going to push you out of your comfort zone, because your awakening ultimately wants to show you what you are, wants to show you who you are and what you're really capable of. So when you're seeing something, or when our five senses are in action, it isn't the five senses that are gathering the information, but actually a very formless intelligence that is gathering and giving shape to whatever it is that we are sensing. And it is all being projected through us as the projector. Yeah, so just imagine. So imagine if you can then tap into that formless place and then simply streamline the projector to be able to project out what you want. And this is exactly what you do with your spiritual awakening. When you've passed that stage of awakening and you're living a pretty much awakened life, this is where you really become, extraordinary, supernatural. You become you're not living at the human dimension or this dimension of, I am just this body and I am just this person with these eyes and legs, and you don't have that. And this is where your relationships also become more about connecting with that version of everybody else and connecting at that formless nature of everybody else. You'll find that when you connect at that level, the kind of people that come into your life and the kind of energy that you also give out will match. So your 3D version of yourself will match that higher dimension, will match that formless dimension where there is no form, there is no matter. But the only reason why we feel that there is no form or no matter is because we are still talking in relation to matter or in relation to form. Because if we let go of the form, or we let go of the relational definitions, you'll see that there really is nothing there. So when we get to that stage, we've passed that stage and we're sort of operating in that pure consciousness. Now, this is where so many of you don't want to look at tools. You're pretty fed up of whether it is creative visualization, whether it is you trying to imagine, you're trying to sort of learn how to manifest this kind of life, because you're at peace with yourself and you're at peace with wherever you are with your life. It's not just going to happen. Now, a little note on all of this. Remember, folks, another reason why tools will not work, even when you are either pre-awakening or awakening, and before you get into that stage of pure consciousness where you're actually able to sort of bend reality and jump into this other level, they don't work because not every tool is going to be for us, because we have our own individual blueprint. We will have our own way. Now, I'll give you a very little example with that. Now, if you look at something like astrology, you look at numerology, you look at all of these tools that we have, there is a certain personality type attributed to somebody who's got different planetary positions at the time of their birth and how they're affected throughout their life. And those will be determined by the kind of consciousness that we had when we left off wherever we were and what you want to experience in this life. But it can be changed so that your life now is beyond your birth and natal charts. It's not going to be determined by the astrology until a certain point. It will determine, because you will have a personality type. It's a bit like having a blood type or a kind of body type or metabolism type. We all have that which is individual to us. It's unique to us. And therefore the tool may not work. So you might be someone who's naturally somebody who wants to know for themselves as opposed to learn from somebody else, who wants to learn but who wants to self-discover. Or you might be somebody who really thrives when you have somebody to guide you or somebody to use as a sounding board. Now, depending on your type, you will then be able to either use a tool effectively or not. So a lot of times when certain tools are not working for you, it's not because you have resistance. And I know that this is something that is said so many times in spiritual communities, that, you know, maybe you're experiencing certain things because you have a block, and maybe that block comes because of resistance inside of you. Sometimes it isn't a resistance. It's that you haven't fine-tuned or aligned whatever tool you're using or whatever your modality is, and including that maybe you don't need a tool, to your type, meaning to who you are. You've not quite figured out or fine-tuned to who you are, your own vehicle. You know, understand the vehicle through which you wish to operate. Now, in this particular vehicle, you might be like, say, you might be a number 7. That might be your soul number, destiny number. If, just to give you an example, folks, this is again just for illustrative, just to explain to you that, look, you're all different. We are all unique in that way. Yeah. So what we use in the interim or that transition to allow us to get through our awakening, get through the awakening, get to the other stage where we're following our bliss, and then to get to a stage where we're literally being able to call ourselves or get into alpha states, get into theta states, get into states through which we're able to literally make changes out there and then hop on to another reality which is going to present itself in the way that our life is happening. And then you have some of you who are being divinely inspired, and you witness synchronicity, and you're pretty much in the flow of life, and you feel, you know, it's great. If you're feeling sad, yeah, I feel great in my sadness. And if my heart is broken, I feel, you know, it is broken. It is what it is. And you carry on, Yet you might feel a little frustration when you then start to self-doubt. You start to self-doubt, and then you start to try to take on a new tool or listen to a new person, and then it starts to grate at you, because rather than you going with what is naturally coming to you by way of inspiration, now you're trying to control it. And that usually comes in when there's a lack of trust, there's again self-doubt, and that self-doubt, the lack of trust and everything comes in when you've just not fallen back, but almost this density of our 3D world can sometimes again pull us back down. And this is okay. You know, you're not immune to this. This is okay. It's going to happen sometimes. And it's okay. It's to allow yourself that and say, well, actually, yes. And this is the joy of this, folks, that which we said there are so many sub-levels to consciousness at every level, whether you're awakening, awakened, and then beyond that stage. Even within those stages, there will be so many different stages. And it's okay to feel a certain way which is not matching up to this ideal that you've created for yourself. And the thing is, let's not create these ideals, and let's just take it as wherever we are at the moment is exactly where we're supposed to be. And so those of you who are already feeling that your life is being sort of run, you know, you're not having to, you don't need tools, but you feel that, okay, I don't need to creatively visualize, because actually I can feel it, and I can feel it when something is happening. You'll feel like turning back or looking at somebody or seeing something or sending an email, or, you know, you just go with it. Don't try to control it. And it's when we doubt, or we start to doubt all of these things, okay, so acknowledge the doubt and say, okay, you know, but our abundance, folks, when we get into that free flow, when you then start to feel inspired, you will feel that everything, your abundance, is no longer something that is out there, but you feel it by virtue of being that fluid, that flexible, that open to this. And so your receptors are on. Yeah, that's where you're able to receive this divine inspiration. These ideas just come to you. It's all on. And when you're all on with your highly sensitive nature now, and you're experiencing all of this, you are abundant. You are feeling it because your wisdom is coming down to you in full abundance, folks. Sending you so much love, 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 love. Be right back.